About 50 new court cases have hit the docket since we last spoke. You don't have time to read them, so I did it for you. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm Brian, and this is the morning report on the news from all of these federal court cases over the weekend for August 11th, 2025. Please do me a favor, drop a comment or a like, and if possible, watch this video all the way to the end. It helps other people see this stuff. All right, you ready? Let's go. Now, first, the witness list for this week's trial in Newsom v. Trump has been released. And despite the government's attempt to block his inclusion, Ernesto Santa Cruz Jr., the acting field office director for Los Angeles enforcement and removal operations at ICE, is on the witness list for the plaintiffs. The government tried very hard to keep this guy out of the trial and failed. So perhaps we shall find out exactly what is so important that he has to say. On a similar subject, also in Newsom v. Trump, the government filed a motion on Friday to prevent public remote access to the upcoming bench trial. They really do not want whatever is said in this trial to go out to the public, which makes me think we really need to pay attention. According to the motion, they are concerned about the identities, not to mention the testimony of ICE agents who the plaintiffs may call as witnesses going out into the public. And the plaintiffs said that the federal government's concerns would be alleviated by providing remote access without video. That way we'd hear the information without seeing their faces. So the court ordered that audio-only streaming would strike a good balance between the defendant's concerns and public access to the information. I would do your best to pay attention to this information coming out of this if you can, and I will do the same. We have a pretty big update on Casa v. Trump, the Casa v. Trump case. And I don't want to get stuck in the weeds here, but let me try to do like a 1-minute overview because this case is not a household name yet, but it's probably one of the biggest changes in the court in years, all right? This was the birthright citizenship case that was before the Supreme Court in June, but the decision was not about birthright citizenship, okay? The court, and this is a massive oversimplification, said that if one person brings a court case against a government policy that affects all Americans, like, say, ending birthright citizenship, and the district court issues a preliminary injunction against the whole government to stop them from enforcing that policy, it can do that. The court can stop the entire government from enforcing that policy, but they're supposed to stop the government from enforcing that policy against that one person, right? Just the plaintiff. Even if no one else gets birthright citizenship, that person, that one person, or more likely that person's kid, still gets birthright citizenship. So that is the ruling of Kasa. Not that the courts can't stop the whole government, but that they can't randomly protect people who aren't part of the case, okay? And the reason is the preliminary injunctions, which are something called equitable relief, are there to stop continued harm against the plaintiff, all right? And yes, we understand why this is sort of difficult to do in practice. And if your head is spinning a little from this explanation, so is mine. It doesn't totally make sense, but it's what we've got. One more time, the court can use a preliminary injunction to stop an entire government policy from harming the plaintiff in the case. But sometimes there are two plaintiffs, and that's okay. The court can protect both of them. Sometimes there are 50 plaintiffs. Also okay. What happens if a whole state is the plaintiff? Well, we talked about that last week in Washington v. Trump. And if that's the case, well, then the federal government can't enforce its policy against anyone in that state. Okay. Well, there's one more option, which is what if we brought a class action suit? That's a lawsuit where just a ton of plaintiffs come together. And the plaintiffs aren't necessarily a list of names, but they might be a description of a class of people, like everyone in the country named Tony, or everybody who's a duck. Or how about every person who was born in the United States to a non-citizen parent? Well, if those are the plaintiffs, then a preliminary injunction could protect them all from this policy. But first, a district court would have to agree to certify a class like that. Well, guess what happened? In Kasa last week, the same case that started this whole mess, the judge certified a new class of plaintiffs for this case. And the class is any child who has been born or will be born in the United States after February 19th, 2025, whose mother was unlawfully present in the United States and whose father was not a United States citizen or lawful permanent resident, that goes on in that way, is a member of this class. And the same day, that judge issued a new preliminary injunction stopping the federal government from enforcing the birthright citizenship order against anyone in that class. So there you go. It didn't take long, even in the Kasa case, to find a way around the Kasa case. Now remember, the preliminary injunctions are temporary. They are placeholders while we consider the actual evidence of the case. So this is not a real decision, but it's still a pretty big deal. All that said, just a note on the Kasa ruling, it is still going to have a huge impact on how we as lawyers file cases going forward. So even if it stops being a huge deal to the public, it's going to be a massive pain in the you-know-what for the rest of us for years to come. Okay, last case for today. We are going to come back to our friends at LUAC. That's the League of United Latin American Citizens v. Trump, which is an elections integrity executive order case. I spoke last week about staffing issues at the Department of Justice and how there turns out there's this one attorney who is supposed to be in several different states at once this week. Well, on Friday, that same attorney filed yet another motion for an extension of time on a summary judgment motion in this case. That makes at least 3 extensions that this attorney is requesting in 3 different courts. I'm not sure any of these judges realize just how thinly this guy is spread, but sooner or later, one of them is going to say no, and that's going to be the end of that case. And this guy is not the only attorney on these cases, but he does appear to be the lead attorney, and he's clearly maybe in a little over his head. Again, I do not blame him. I have been there, but this is a problem that will get worse before it gets better for the DOJ. So the DOJ really might want to get on top of this. All right. That is your Monday morning report for the past weekend in the federal courts. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. Try to hang on for a couple more seconds. If you can leave a comment or a like to get this out there, I would really appreciate it. And if you know someone else who would enjoy this, please share it with them. Otherwise, keep watching, everybody, and I will keep going. Thanks a lot and have a great Monday.